Today we're going to talk about loose leaf tea and how to prepare it. I've been studying tea and teaching tea lessons for about 20 years now, and one of the things I hear the most is, oh, Americans are lazy, or they want things really quick. They won't slow down and enjoy a loose leaf tea. That's why there are tea bags, right? And I get you. Like, tea bags are made for one purpose, to create flavor in the cup very quickly, which is why if you were to rip open like a Lipton tea bag or some other supermarket brand of tea bag, you're going to find very small leaf particles. And the reason you're going to find those small leaf particles is because the greater the surface area of that leaf in contact with water, the faster you're going to pull out the soluble solids from those leaves into your cup, which is why a tea bag can literally turn clear water into what looks like tea in a matter of seconds. And I want to talk to you about loose leaf tea. There's nothing wrong with tea bags. There's nothing wrong with enjoying them. And that's something that I want to, like a theme I want to continue throughout these videos. Like, if there's something you enjoy, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not a tea snob. I hate the idea of tea snobbery, but my goal is to just show you the world of tea and just take you on that journey. And you know, if you want to keep going, great. If you want to go back to tea bags or ready to drink teas in a bottle, fine. No harm, no foul. But I really think that there's just a beautiful world to discover in loose leaf teas. And what I mean by loose leaf teas is, in its simplest sense, teas that are loose and the leaves are actually loose and not shoved in a bag. Like, here is an example of one. This is a white tea, and you can see, I mean, they're just literally loose leaves, right? What do you do with these? And I just want to tell you that you don't need anything special. You don't need a beautiful tea set or anything crazy. In its simplest sense, you need to make these leaves come into contact with hot water, and then you need to have some way to remove these leaves from that hot water, period. Like, it's that easy. Yes, we'll get into time and temperature in a later video. You know, there are certain teas that will become bitter if steeped at a too hot of a temperature or too long, and we'll talk about that later, but this is the basics, right? How do you make these leaves come into contact with water and then remove them from the water? So I have a couple different ways we can do that in the kitchen here today. The most simple is just a simple strainer. So I can put the leaves in this simple Pyrex, pour hot water in there, wait a couple minutes, and then I can pour the leaves and water through this into my coffee mug, and we're done. I mean, this is stuff I have around the kitchen. It doesn't have to be crazy. A lot of folks you'll see using a French press. Also a great idea, because you can mix the leaves and the water down here, push this guy down when it's done, and you separate the leaves from the water for the most part. I mean, there's still gonna be some sort of soluble solids interacting with the water down there in the leaves, and it's not 100% ideal. And also, you don't wanna also use this for coffee. If this is something you use for coffee every day, it's gonna smell like coffee. There's gonna be, you know, coffee residue attached to the plastic there. So not 100% ideal, but if it's all you have, okay, great. Give it a good wash first, maybe throw it in a dishwasher and give it a go. And probably my most common preparation method in our home, we're all tea drinkers, this is how we do it. We just simply get a large infuser basket. I'm talking about a large one for a reason here, because once these leaves go into the water, they will expand, especially a tightly rolled tea like an oolong. If you're using one of those like little tiny infuser baskets, or there are a million different ones on the market today that are like shaped like animals, and there's like an animal floating in the water with like this little tiny little spot for the leaves in the bottom. Not a good idea. You want those leaves to expand, and you want water to move freely in between them so that you can extract the most flavor from them, which is why this is perfect. This simple infuser basket fills almost the entirety of this coffee mug. So what we'll do is we'll pour the leaves in there, pour hot water over it, wait a couple minutes, and then we'll remove this, set it aside, and you've got a cup of tea. I mean, that's pretty darn easy. If we're serving tea for more than one person, we have like a larger version of this little like glass carafe you can find quite easily. The same type of filter going there. They make them in all different sizes and styles. Like, this one's some sort of aluminum. This one is a little mesh and plastic. The plastic you'll get flavors to adhere to that, so you don't want to like use a flavored tea and then go back to like a pure tea. You want to kind of stay in your lane here. Same idea. You throw this in here, let it infuse for a few minutes, pull it out, and then you go ahead and pour this into your cups. So what you'll see a lot on YouTube and social media is a lot of reference to Asian culture. And the reason being is because, you know, tea originated in China, and the most tea in the world is grown in and around Asia. There's a lot of Asian culture tied to tea, a lot of beautiful, deep, rich rabbit holes we can go down studying Asian culture. I love it, actually. But that's really not about what this series is about right now. I'm trying to break it down in a simple sense so that we can understand tea and then add the culture and the history on top. But I'll be remiss to not show you another one of my favorite tea brewing implements, and this is called a gaiwan. This was invented in China. Gaiwan simply means cup with lid, and you have a cup with a lid. There's also a tray. Here, it's actually a little bit easier than all of these, in my view. You put the leaves in here, you put the water in here, put that lid on there, wait a few seconds, and then you tip the lid over a little bit and let this little kind of crevice form, and then you pour it into a teacup and the leaves are left behind. This is a very commonly used thing throughout Asia. I'm telling you right now, there's really no difference between this method and this method. They will both produce the same tea and flavor profile, which is why in our household, this is our go-to. It's just easy. We throw these things in the dishwasher when we're done with it, right? If I'm having friends over and I've got like a really special tea I want to share with them, I might do this. Like, just it feels a little nicer sometimes to sit around and do this. And this actually leads into another discussion about tea. Here in the West, we typically will put a small amount of leaf in a large amount of water and steep for a couple of minutes. In the East, when you're using something like this or a very small teapot, you may have noticed that teapots in Asia are quite small, similar in size to the body of this. The reason is they use a much higher concentration of tea leaves to water. And there's an interesting reason here. And we'll go into a whole discussion later about Western versus Eastern steeping styles, but it wouldn't be odd to pour all of these leaves into this gaiwan. It's a lot. I mean, it almost takes up the whole thing. But what comes next is quite interesting. So if someone was preparing tea for you in, say, like a Chinese tea shop, they would pour water into this and very quickly decant it within seconds. And you get a very small amount of a very light infusion. And then they would pour water in again, let it go for a couple more seconds, pour it out, and you'd have a little bit of a deeper, darker infusion with a little more body. What you'll end up doing is steeping a tea 5, 6, some teas can go like 20 times in something like this. And it's nothing magical. It's simply you're using more leaves, less water, shorter infusions, and we'll get into all that nerdy science stuff later. But I really just want you to realize that you don't need anything special to brew tea. You can get these for a few bucks on Amazon. You already probably have a coffee mug in your house. Just make sure it's clean. And if you really want to MacGyver it, why not? I mean, I've been in hotels or Airbnbs where I've had to MacGyver it. It's just something you might have to do. Hopefully this opens your eyes to how simple using loose leaves can be. It doesn't have to be confusing or difficult. We'll go in subsequent videos into steeping times and all the different parameters, but it's really just time, temperature, and the ratio of water to leaves. That's it. You can't really go wrong. And there are a couple, short of going into that sort of like scientific conversation, which we'll do later, here are just a few tips, right? So if your tea's bitter, then there are a couple things you can do. You can steep it for a shorter amount of time. You can use water that isn't as hot, or you can use less leaves. That's it, right? The beauty of loose leaf teas in that they're not broken and that they're not made to infuse very quickly and be very robust, so much so that it may need to require milk, cream, sugar, etc., is that the soluble solids come out of loose leaves because of the lack of surface area compared to a ground up tea a little bit slower. And there are teas that will surprise people. Like people that are used to putting cream and sugar in their tea every morning, when I make them like a very slowly brewed, very nice black tea, maybe like a Dianhong from Yunnan province in China, or a Darjeeling, or something from Sri Lanka, Ceylon tea, and I steep it correctly and really don't overdo it. A lot of people are surprised by like the sweetness, the fact that they don't feel that they need to add anything to it, which is again a whole other discussion that we can go into where it's actually healthier to drink just tea and water than add cream, milk, sugar, etc. into it. So that's a totally different topic. We'll get there later, but the nugget here that I wanted you to gain in this video is that it doesn't have to be complicated. Like this is pretty easy. Anybody can do this. Like the worst that can happen here is that you forget about it and let it sit in here for 20 minutes and it tastes awful. Okay, then you just chuck it and start again. Same can happen with a tea bag, right? But this is the way to go. Feel free to hit me up in the comments below and stand by for our next video where we'll delve a little bit deeper into the different types of tea. Thank you. Have a great day.